Captain Marcus Chun stood motionless in the crystalline throne room, his hands clasped behind his back as alien eyes studied him with growing irritation. The Zephyrian Queen Valdris towered above him on her bioluminescent throne, her four arms gesticulating wildly as she spoke in her musical yet sharp language. Around the chamber, her courtiers whispered and clicked their mandibles in what Marcus had learned was their equivalent of mocking laughter. The translation device, hanging from his neck, buzzed softly before converting her words into English. 3 solar cycles we have hosted this creature, Queen Valdris announced, her voice dripping with disdain. 3 cycles of diplomatic meetings where he sits like a stone statue, saying nothing of value. The humans sent us their most silent representative, thinking perhaps we would be impressed by his stoic nature. More clicking filled the air as the assembled nobles found this amusing. Marcus remained perfectly still, his face showing no emotion as the queen continued her verbal assault. He had learned long ago that in situations like these, patience was not just a virtue, but a survival skill. "Look at him," she continued, rising from her throne to pace before him. Her translucent wings caught the chamber's bioluminescent lighting, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Even now, when I speak directly about his inadequacies, he says nothing. No defense, no explanation, no dignity. Perhaps humans truly are the inferior species, my advisor suggested. The Queen's chief advisor, a thin Zephyrian with silver markings along his exoskeleton, approached the throne. "Your Magnificence, perhaps we should simply send him back to his primitive world. Clearly, their leadership lacks the wisdom to send a proper diplomat." Marcus watched the exchange with calm eyes, noting the subtle power dynamics at play. The advisor was positioning himself as the voice of reason, while simultaneously pushing for action that would benefit his own standing. It was a political dance Marcus had seen countless times across dozens of worlds. "You know what I find most insulting?" Queen Valdris asked, turning back to face Marcus directly. His silence isn't born of respect or ceremony. It's ignorance. He simply doesn't understand the gravity of what we're discussing. She began to circle him like a predator, her movements fluid and hypnotic. "We offer the humans membership in the Galactic Consortium, access to technologies that could advance their species by millennia, and they send us this mute statue. Does he even comprehend what we're offering?" Marcus did understand, perhaps better than anyone in the room realized. The Galactic Consortium was indeed powerful, controlling trade routes across 7-star systems and possessing technology that could revolutionize human civilization. But he also understood what the Queen wasn't saying openly. The consortium's membership came with a price that few species could afford to pay: complete cultural assimilation, surrender of military autonomy, and acceptance of the consortium's caste system that would place humanity firmly at the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. The humans would become little more than indentured servants, mining dangerous asteroids and performing menial labor while the higher castes enjoyed the benefits of their work. "Perhaps," the Queen mused, settling back on her throne, "we should demonstrate to the humans what happens to species that waste our time." The threat was clear, though delivered with the Queen's characteristic elegant malice. Marcus had read the intelligence reports about worlds that had refused the consortium's generous offers. They tended to experience unfortunate accidents: solar flares that disrupted their communications, asteroid strikes that destroyed key infrastructure, plagues that seemed to target specific genetic markers. "Your Magnificence," another courtier spoke up, this one bearing the red markings of the military caste. "General Thaxos has been eager to test our new atmosphere processors. The human homeworld would provide an excellent testing ground." The Queen's compound eyes glittered with amusement. "An interesting suggestion, Commander Zix. Though perhaps we should give our silent friend one final opportunity to speak for his species." She leaned forward on her throne, her voice taking on a mock-sweet tone. "Captain Chun, isn't it? I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions. If you can answer them satisfactorily, we'll continue these negotiations in good faith. If not, well, your species will learn that the cosmos can be quite unforgiving to those who show us disrespect. Marcus nodded once, a barely perceptible movement that acknowledged he was listening. First question, the Queen began, her voice now carrying the weight of ceremony. Why should the mighty consortium accept a species that has barely achieved faster-than-light travel and still fights wars on their own planet? The courtiers leaned forward expectantly. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the chance to hear the human grovel or reveal his species' desperation. Marcus remained silent for a long moment, his breathing steady and controlled. Second question, the Queen continued when no response came. What can humanity possibly offer to civilizations that have master technologies beyond your comprehension? What value could you bring to our ancient and sophisticated alliance? Still, Marcus said nothing. His dark eyes remained fixed on a point just above the Queen's head, showing neither fear nor defiance, simply an almost meditative calm that was beginning to unnerve some of the assembled aliens. And finally, Queen Valdris said, her voice rising with barely contained fury, "Why should we not simply eliminate your species as a potential threat to galactic stability? You show no respect, no understanding of protocol, and apparently no ability to communicate like civilized beings." The chamber fell absolutely silent, except for the soft humming of the bioluminescent organisms that provided light. Every eye was fixed on Marcus, waiting for his response. The silence stretched for nearly a full minute. Then Marcus smiled. It wasn't a broad grin or a nervous laugh. It was a small, knowing smile that seemed to hold secrets the Queen couldn't fathom. For the first time since arriving at the consortium homeworld, he spoke. "Your Magnificence," he said in perfect, unaccented Zephyrian that caused several courtiers to step backward in shock. "Forgive me for not speaking sooner. I was waiting to ensure I had a complete understanding of your civilization's true nature before responding." The Queen's mandibles clicked in confusion. The translation device around Marcus's neck remained silent because he no longer needed it. "You speak our language," she said, her composure cracking slightly. "How long have you understood everything we've said?" "Since before I arrived," Marcus replied calmly. Along with 17 other consortium languages, their various dialects, and the subtle variations that indicate social caste, regional origin, and political affiliation. The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. Every private conversation, every whispered insult, every strategic discussion held in his presence had been fully understood. The Queen's face cycled through several colors as her emotional state shifted rapidly between anger, embarrassment, and something approaching fear. "Impossible, comme des X snarled." Human brains lack the neural complexity to master our linguistic matrices. Our xenobiologists confirm this. Marcus turned his attention to the military commander. "Your xenobiologists examined genetic samples from human criminals purchased from black market traders 3 decades ago. Hardly representative specimens, and certainly not from individuals who had undergone the cognitive enhancement protocols that have been standard for diplomatic personnel for the past 15 years. "Enhancement protocols?" the Queen asked, her voice now notably less confident than before. "Advanced neural pathway expansion, memory matrix enhancement, and accelerated learning algorithms," Marcus explained as if discussing the weather. "Standard preparation for any human who might encounter alien civilizations. We learned long ago that true communication requires more than just translation devices." He paused, noting how several courtiers had moved closer to the chamber's exits. "But linguistic capability was never the issue, was it, Your Magnificence? You weren't looking for communication. You were looking for submission." The Queen's 4 hands clenched into fists. "You dare question our motives?" "I don't question them," Marcus replied. "I understand them perfectly. The consortium operates on a simple model. Identify developing civilizations, offer them membership with promises of advanced technology, then gradually strip away their autonomy until they become resource-gathering slaves for the established member species." "Lies," the chief advisor hissed. "The Keltorian system was offered membership 43 years ago," Marcus continued without missing a beat. Within a decade, their entire population had been relocated to asteroid mining stations. The Vaxian homeworld became an agricultural processing center after they joined 38 years ago. The Mordak were integrated as a military auxiliary and have since fought 3 wars for the consortium's benefit. The specific details clearly unsettled the assembled aliens. This wasn't the broad speculation of someone guessing at their methods. This was the precise knowledge of someone who had done extensive research. How do you know these details? Queen Valdris demanded. The same way I know that your atmospheric processors aren't designed for terraforming. They're weapons of mass extinction. The same way I know that General Thaxos isn't eager to test them. He's eager to use them because your military leadership believes humanity represents a genuine threat to consortium dominance. Marcus began to walk slowly around the chamber, his hands still clasped behind his back. The casual confidence of his movement was a stark contrast to the tension now filling the room. You see, Your Magnificence, while you've been studying humanity for decades, we've been studying you for longer. Every consortium ship that entered our space was tracked. Every communication was intercepted and decoded. Every piece of technology was analyzed and reverse-engineered. Reverse-engineered? Commander Zix laughed harshly. Your species can barely manage interstellar flight. Marcus stopped walking and looked directly at the military commander. Tell me, Commander, how many consortium ships have disappeared in the past 5 years while conducting reconnaissance near human space? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Commander Zix's expression shifted from amusement to something approaching concern. Answer carefully, Marcus continued. Because I know the exact number, along with their mission parameters, crew complements, and the specific intelligence they were attempting to gather. 17 ships, Queen Valdris said quietly. We lost 17 ships. You didn't lose them, Marcus corrected. We took them, along with their crews, their computers, and, most importantly, their complete technical specifications for consortium technology. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers and angry chittering. Several courtiers began speaking rapidly in what Marcus recognized as an emergency military dialect, discussing evacuation protocols and threat assessment procedures. Silence, the Queen commanded, her voice carrying the full authority of her position. The chamber fell quiet, but the tension remained thick enough to cut. You're claiming that humans attacked and captured consortium vessels? She asked. I'm claiming that humans defended themselves against unauthorized reconnaissance missions in their sovereign space, Marcus replied. The fact that those defensive actions resulted in captured enemy assets was simply a beneficial side effect. Enemy assets? Commander Zix sputtered. We were conducting routine scientific observations. Armed scientific vessels with full military escorts conducting detailed scans of human defensive positions, communication networks, and industrial capabilities, Marcus countered. If that constitutes routine scientific observation in consortium space, then your definition of science is remarkably aggressive. Queen Valdris studied Marcus with new eyes, seeing him clearly for the first time since his arrival. What do you want, human? The same thing you want, Your Magnificence. A mutually beneficial relationship between our civilizations. The difference is that I'm prepared to negotiate from a position of actual mutual respect rather than predatory deception. And if we refuse? Marcus's smile returned, though this time it carried a distinctly predatory edge. Then, you'll discover that humanity has spent the past 50 years preparing for exactly that possibility. Queen Valdris felt her world tilting on its axis as she stared at the human who had just shattered every assumption her civilization had made about his species. The confident alien leader who had ruled the consortium's most powerful member world for over 2 centuries suddenly felt like a juvenile facing an adult predator. Impossible, she whispered, though her voice carried clearly in the now silent chamber. Our intelligence networks would have detected any significant human military development. We've monitored every major human facility for decades. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Your monitoring has been quite thorough. We've been very impressed with your surveillance technology. In fact, we learned a great deal from studying the sensor drones you've had positioned throughout our system. Studying them? Commander Zix asked, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. After we captured them, yes. Fascinating engineering, though rather primitive compared to what humans developed once we understood the underlying principles. Did you know that your quantum entanglement communication arrays have a fundamental design flaw that allows for signal interception if you know the right resonance frequencies? The military commander's exoskeleton began to shift colors, indicating severe stress. You're bluffing. Human technology cannot intercept quantum communications. 3 days ago, Admiral Kerrigan received orders to increase patrols in Sector 7 because your reconnaissance indicated possible human weapons testing in that region, Marcus said casually. Yesterday, General Thaxos approved requisitions for 17 new atmosphere processors specifically for use against Class M planets with nitrogen-oxygen atmospheres. This morning, you personally authorized the deployment of 3 more surveillance networks to monitor human shipping lanes. The specific details hit the chamber like physical blows. These weren't general intelligence summaries or educated guesses. These were precise quotes from classified consortium military communications sent through their most secure channels. How? Queen Valdris asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The same way we discovered that your consortium isn't actually the peaceful alliance of equals that you present to potential members, Marcus replied. The same way we learned that membership votes are rigged, that resources are extracted from member worlds under threat of force, and that any species showing signs of technological independence tends to experience unfortunate accidents. He began walking again, this time moving closer to the throne. Several guards moved to intercept him, but the Queen held up a hand to stop them. You see, Your Magnificence, humanity has something that your consortium has never had to deal with before. We have imagination. Imagination? The chief advisor scoffed. What possible military value could imagination have? Marcus turned to face the advisor directly. When your species first achieved faster-than-light travel, what did you do? We explored nearby systems, established colonies, made contact with other civilizations, the advisor replied, cautiously. Exactly. You followed logical, predictable patterns based on resource acquisition and territorial expansion. Very sensible, very rational, very easy to predict and counter. Marcus resumed his slow walk around the chamber. When humans achieved FTL travel, do you know what our first major project was? The aliens waited in silence, though Marcus could see the tension in their postures. We built a fleet of ships designed specifically to be captured. The statement was so unexpected that several courtiers made confused clicking sounds. Captured ships? Queen Valdris asked. Trojan horses, Marcus explained. Vessels that appeared to be normal human exploration or research ships, but were actually sophisticated intelligence-gathering platforms designed to be taken by any hostile alien force that encountered them. The implications began to dawn on the assembled consortium leaders. When your forces captured what they thought were lost human vessels, they were actually bringing fully operational spy platforms directly into the heart of your civilization. Every consortium facility those ships visited, every conversation they overheard, every piece of technology they were exposed to was recorded and transmitted back to human space through hidden quantum communicators. The 17 ships, Commander Zix said, his voice hollow with realization, were exactly where we wanted them to be, Marcus confirmed, along with the 43 additional ships that your forces captured over the past 8 years. Each one a perfectly designed intelligence asset, providing us with complete real-time information about consortium military capabilities, political structures, and expansion plans. Queen Valdris felt her legs give way slightly, forcing her to lean against her throne for support. You've been inside our networks for 8 years. Longer, actually. The intelligence-gathering ships were just Phase 1. Phase 2 involved the cultural exchange students. What cultural exchange students? The chief advisor demanded. The ones your sociologists requested 15 years ago when they wanted to study human behavior patterns. You were so pleased when we agreed to send you some of our young people to study in consortium universities. Marcus smiled at the memory. 37 brilliant human students scattered across 12 consortium worlds, all of them equipped with advanced memory enhancement implants and trained in intelligence-gathering techniques. They learned your languages, studied your technologies, integrated themselves into your academic and research communities. Where are they now? Queen Valdris asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Dr. Sarah Chun is currently the head of exotic matter research at the Zephyrian Institute of Advanced Sciences. Dr. Michael Torres runs the Quantum Computing Lab on Kelta Prime. Dr. Jennifer Walsh is the Assistant Director of Military Technology Development at your primary weapons research facility. The chamber filled with horrified gasps and angry chittering as the full scope of human infiltration became clear. But, perhaps most importantly, Marcus continued, Dr. David Park has spent the last 6 years working directly with General Thaxos on atmospheric processor development. Commander Zix's entire body began to shake with rage. You sent spies to steal our military secrets. We sent students to learn, Marcus corrected mildly. The fact that your security protocols were so inadequate that students could access classified military research isn't really our fault, is it? What do you want? Queen Valdris asked again, though her tone had completely changed from imperious demand to desperate plea. I want what I said I wanted. A genuine alliance based on mutual respect and shared benefit. The difference is that now you understand the terms of that alliance will be negotiated between equals rather than between a predator and prey. Equals, the chief advisor sputtered. You're one species. We are a consortium of 47 civilizations. 47 civilizations that are completely dependent on technologies and infrastructure they don't actually understand, Marcus replied. Tell me, Chief Advisor, if the central computing networks that manage your FTL communications suddenly experience catastrophic failures, how long would it take to restore contact between consortium worlds? The advisor's mandibles clicked nervously. That's impossible. Our networks have multiple redundancies and fail-safe systems. Designed by Dr. Jennifer Walsh's research team, Marcus pointed out, along with the quantum security protocols that protect them and the automated maintenance systems that keep them running. You're threatening us, Queen Valdris said, though her voice lacked any real indignation. I'm explaining our capabilities, Marcus corrected. Just as you explained yours when you mentioned atmosphere processors and the unfortunate accidents that befall uncooperative species. He stopped walking and faced the Queen directly. The difference is that our capabilities are already in place and have been for years. Yours would require a military campaign that would cost significant resources and reveal to the entire galaxy that the consortium maintains its membership through force rather than consensus. What are you proposing? Queen Valdris asked. A genuine alliance. Humans join the consortium as full equals with complete autonomy over our internal affairs. We share certain technologies with consortium members in exchange for access to your knowledge and resources. We work together to explore new regions of the galaxy and defend against external threats. And if we refuse, Marcus shrugged casually. Then humanity continues to exist as an independent civilization while the consortium discovers that their infrastructure isn't as secure as they believed. You would attack us? We would defend ourselves, Marcus corrected. If the consortium chooses to interpret defensive preparations as aggressive actions, that's your decision. The Queen studied him carefully. You're very confident for someone who stands alone in a room full of potential enemies. I'm not alone, Marcus replied simply. Before anyone could ask what he meant, a new voice spoke from the chamber's entrance. He certainly isn't. Every head turned to see a tall woman in a crisp military uniform striding into the chamber. She wore the insignia of a human admiral, and her confident bearing made it clear she was accustomed to command. Admiral Sarah Reeves, she announced, offering a polite nod to Queen Valdris. Earth Defense Force. I hope we're not interrupting anything important. How did you get past our security? Commander Zix demanded. The same way Captain Chin got past yours, I imagine, Admiral Reeves replied. Though I have to say, your guards are very polite. They showed us directly to the throne room when we explained we were here for a diplomatic meeting. Guards, the Queen called, but no response came from the chamber's entrances. They're fine, Admiral Reeves assured her. Just taking a brief rest while we conduct our business. Dr. Park's recent advances in non-lethal neural disruption technology are quite effective. Marcus smiled at his colleague. I was just explaining to Her Magnificence the terms of our proposed alliance. Excellent. I hope the negotiations are going well, because we're operating on a rather tight schedule. Schedule? Queen Valdris asked. Admiral Reeves checked a device on her wrist. The Consortium Military Council is meeting in approximately 4 hours to vote on General Thaxos's proposal for a preemptive strike against human space. We'd prefer to have this alliance formalized before then. How do you know about the Military Council meeting? The Queen demanded. The same way we know that 3 Consortium battle fleets are currently positioned at strategic points around human space, waiting for orders to begin their attack, Admiral Reeves replied. The same way we know that your atmosphere processors are already loaded aboard transport ships and ready for deployment. She moved to stand beside Marcus, presenting a united front to the assembled aliens. The same way we know that you've already prepared the propaganda broadcasts explaining to the galaxy how humanity's aggressive actions force the Consortium to take defensive measures. Impossible commander Zix grôled. Those details were known only to the highest levels of military command. Yes, Admiral Reeves agreed. Dr. Park has done excellent work infiltrating those levels. Did you know that General Thaxos considers him one of his most trusted advisors? They've become quite close over the years. The full scope of human intelligence penetration was beginning to overwhelm the Consortium leaders. For decades, they had operated under the assumption that they possessed overwhelming technological and informational superiority. Now they were discovering that they had been thoroughly outmaneuvered by a species they considered primitive. What happens to our fleets? Queen Valdris asked quietly. That depends entirely on what happens in this room, Admiral Reeves replied. If we reach a mutually acceptable agreement within the next hour, those fleets will receive new orders to return to their home bases. If we don't, they'll discover that human defensive capabilities are significantly more advanced than your intelligence suggested. You would attack 3 battle fleets? We would defend ourselves. Marcus repeated his earlier phrase. Though I think you'll find that our defensive capabilities are quite robust. Admiral Reeves nodded. Humanity has spent 50 years preparing for exactly this situation. We've studied every aspect of Consortium military doctrine, analyzed every weapon system, and developed countermeasures for every tactical scenario your strategists have ever considered. Plus several they haven't, Marcus added helpfully. Queen Valdris felt the weight of centuries of Consortium dominance crashing down around her as she stared at the 2 humans who had systematically dismantled every assumption her civilization held about their own superiority. The throne room that had witnessed the submission of dozens of species now hosted negotiations that could reshape the entire galactic order. You mentioned countermeasures, she said carefully. What kind of countermeasures? Admiral Reeves and Captain Chun exchanged a look that spoke of shared knowledge and careful planning. Perhaps a demonstration would be more effective than an explanation, Admiral Reeves suggested. She touched the device on her wrist and spoke clearly. Admiral Reeves to Phoenix. Execute Operation Mirror. Within seconds, every display screen in the throne room activated simultaneously, showing a view of space near the Consortium homeworld. 3 massive Consortium battle fleets hung in perfect formation, their ships bristling with weapons and atmospheric processors. Your fleets, Admiral Reeves announced unnecessarily. The displays zoomed in to show individual ships, their hulls gleaming with the characteristic biometallic armor that made Consortium vessels nearly indestructible by conventional weapons. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, The space around each fleet began to shimmer. "What is that?" Commander Zix demanded, leaning forward to study the strange distortions appearing on the screens. "Quantum displacement fields," Captain Shun explained casually. "A technology we developed after studying the quantum mechanics principles behind your FTL drives. Very useful for relocating objects from one position to another without their consent." As he spoke, the shimmering intensified, and, suddenly, the three battle fleets simply vanished from their positions. The displays switched to show different views of space, revealing the same fleets now floating helplessly in three separate locations millions of kilometers from their original positions. "Where are they?" Queen Valdris asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Safe," Admiral Reeves assured her. "Fleet 1 is currently positioned in an empty nebula about 15 light-years from here. Fleet 2 is orbiting a gas giant in an uninhabited system. Fleet 3 is enjoying the scenic view of a binary pulsar that's safely out of range, but provides quite spectacular radiation displays." "Ow!" The chief advisor managed to stutter. "Quantum displacement technology combined with precision targeting systems," Captain Chen explained. "We've been refining the technique for decades, using the captured consortium ships as test subjects. It turns out that once you understand the quantum resonance patterns of biometallic hull construction, moving entire fleets becomes relatively simple." Commander Zix was frantically manipulating a control device, trying to establish communication with his displaced fleets. "They're not responding to communications. The quantum displacement fields interfere with conventional communication systems," Admiral Reeves explained helpfully. "Though we can certainly relay messages if necessary. Would you like to let them know they're safe?" "Return them immediately," the Queen commanded, though her voice lacked its earlier authority. "Of course," Admiral Reeves agreed. "As soon as we conclude our negotiations and formalize our alliance agreement." "This is an act of war." "No, Your Magnificence," Captain Shun corrected gently. "An act of war would have been destroying those fleets rather than relocating them. We're demonstrating restraint and hoping for a peaceful resolution." "Besides," Admiral Reeves added, "declaring war would be rather difficult when your military forces are scattered across several star systems without the ability to coordinate their actions." The Queen sank back onto her throne, the full implications of humanity's capabilities finally becoming clear. Not only had humans penetrated every level of consortium society, but they possessed technologies that could neutralize the consortium's military advantages without firing a single shot. "How long have you been able to do this?" she asked. "The first successful quantum displacement test was conducted 8 years ago using a captured consortium scout ship," Captain Chen replied. "We've been refining the technology ever since, using progressively larger vessels as test subjects." The missing ships weren't destroyed, Queen Valdris realized. They were relocated for study, and their crews were treated as honored guests while we learned from them, Admiral Reeves confirmed. "Human intelligence gathering has always prioritized minimizing casualties. We prefer to learn from our potential adversaries rather than simply eliminate them." "What happened to the crews?" "They're currently serving as cultural liaisons and technical advisors at various human research facilities," Captain Chen explained. "Most of them have expressed surprise at how well they've been treated compared to how the consortium typically handles prisoners of war." The chief advisor made a strangled sound of protest. "The consortium doesn't take prisoners of war. We don't engage in warfare. Except when member species show signs of independence," Admiral Reeves pointed out, "or when potential new members refuse your generous offers of membership." The Keltorian resistance lasted almost 3 years before their atmosphere processors were deployed, didn't it? The specific reference to classified military operations sent another wave of shock through the chamber. These humans didn't just know about consortium activities. They knew details that should have been accessible only to the highest levels of government. "Dr. Park has been very thorough in his research," Captain Chen added. "General Thaxos is quite proud of his operational efficiency and enjoys discussing his past successes with trusted colleagues." Queen Valdris closed her eyes for a moment, trying to process the magnitude of the intelligence disaster her civilization faced. When she opened them again, her expression had changed from arrogant superiority to something approaching respect. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked. Admiral Reeves activated a holographic display that showed a detailed document. A formal alliance treaty between humanity and the consortium based on genuine equality and mutual benefit. The treaty outline appeared in the air above them, written in both English and formal consortium diplomatic language. Article 1, Captain Chun began reading, establishes humanity as a full consortium member with complete autonomy over internal affairs, territorial sovereignty, and technological development. Article 2 outlines technology, sharing protocols that benefit all parties without requiring any member to surrender core strategic capabilities. Article 3, Admiral Reeves continued, establishes joint exploration and colonization projects with shared resources and governance. Article 4 creates mutual defense agreements against external threats while prohibiting the use of force against member species. As they read through the treaty provisions, the consortium leaders realized they were looking at something unprecedented in their civilization's history. This wasn't a surrender document or a list of demands from a conquering force. It was a genuine proposal for partnership between equals. "This is unlike any agreement we've ever signed," the chief advisor observed. "That's because it's the first agreement you've been offered by a species capable of negotiating from a position of strength," Captain Shin replied. "Previous members joined under duress or from desperation. We're joining by choice and from mutual advantage." Queen Valdris studied the treaty terms carefully. Despite the circumstances that had brought them to this point, the humans were offering genuinely beneficial arrangements. Access to quantum displacement technology alone would revolutionize consortium capabilities, while human intelligence gathering techniques could provide unprecedented security advantages. "These technology sharing provisions," she said slowly, "you're offering to teach us quantum displacement? In exchange for certain consortium technologies that would benefit humanity," Admiral Reeves confirmed. "Biometallic hull construction, advanced atmosphere processing for terraforming, and quantum communication networks, among others. But you already have access to our atmospheric processing technology through Dr. Park," Commander Zix pointed out. "Dr. Park has access to weapons-grade atmosphere processors," Captain Chen corrected. "We're interested in the terraforming applications that could help us establish colonies in previously uninhabitable systems. And your quantum displacement technology could help us establish new trade routes and explore distant regions of the galaxy more efficiently," Queen Valdris realized. "Exactly. A genuine partnership where both sides benefit and neither is exploited." The Queen stood and began pacing again, though this time her movements were thoughtful rather than agitated. "Your people planned this very carefully. For over 50 years, Admiral Reeves confirmed. From a moment we detected consortium ships in our space, we began preparing for this eventual confrontation. We hoped it could be resolved diplomatically, but we were ready for any outcome, including military conflict, if necessary, though we much prefer the current approach." Queen Valdris stopped pacing and faced the two humans directly. "You could have simply attacked us. Your quantum displacement technology would have given you overwhelming tactical advantages. Why offer partnership instead?" "Because humanity has learned from observing the consortium's methods," Captain Chen replied. "Ruling through fear and force creates enemies, not allies. We'd rather have genuine partners working toward common goals than conquered subjects plotting rebellion." "Besides," Admiral Reeves added, "the galaxy is a very large place with plenty of resources for everyone. Competition for scarce resources only makes sense when resources are actually scarce." The logic was difficult to argue with, though it ran counter to thousands of years of consortium political philosophy. The idea of voluntary cooperation based on mutual benefit rather than hierarchical control was almost alien to their way of thinking. "There are other provisions in this treaty," the chief advisor noted, highlighting sections of the holographic document. Restructuring of consortium governance to give member species genuine representation. Elimination of the caste system for member worlds. Conversion of atmosphere processors from weapons to terraforming tools. Necessary reforms to ensure the long-term stability of the alliance, Captain Chen agreed. The current system creates instability and resentment that ultimately weakens everyone involved. You're asking us to fundamentally change how our entire civilization operates, Queen Valdris observed. We're asking you to evolve, Admiral Reeves corrected, to become something better than what you currently are. The same thing you've been asking developing species to do, except now you have partners capable of helping you through the transition rather than subjects forced to navigate alone. The Queen returned to her throne and sat in contemplation for several minutes. The chamber remained silent, except for the soft humming of bioluminescent organisms and the occasional click of nervous mandibles. Finally, she spoke. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply replace the consortium as a galactic hegemon? The same guarantees you have that any alliance partner will honor their agreements, Captain Chen replied. Mutual benefit, shared oversight, and the knowledge that betrayal would be both detectable and costly. Plus, Admiral Reeves added with a slight smile, humanity has demonstrated that we're quite capable of defending ourselves. Any species contemplating aggression against us would need to consider whether the potential benefits outweigh the certain costs. And our displaced fleets will be returned to normal space as soon as this treaty is signed and transmitted to the Consortium Council for ratification, Admiral Reeves promised, along with complete technical specifications for the quantum displacement systems used to move them. Queen Valdris looked around the chamber at her assembled advisors and courtiers. She could see the fear and uncertainty in their faces, but also something that had been absent from consortium politics for centuries: hope. Very well, she said at last. Let us proceed with these negotiations. The modifications to the consortium ships are proceeding ahead of schedule, Admiral Reeves reported, joining the Queen at the viewing portal. Dr. Walsh's integration of human quantum displacement systems with consortium biometallic hulls has exceeded all performance expectations. And the human vessels? Queen Valdris asked, noting the sleek Earth ships that moved with an efficiency she was still learning to appreciate. The biometallic armor upgrades are remarkable, Admiral Reeves replied. We estimate a 300% improvement in structural integrity and a 40% reduction in energy requirements for life support systems. Through the transparent aluminum, they could see the flagship of their joint fleet taking shape. The vessel represented a fusion of technologies that neither species could have achieved alone. Human quantum mechanics merged seamlessly with consortium biological engineering, creating something entirely new and vastly superior to what either civilization had possessed independently. Dr. Park's atmospheric processing systems are ready for deployment, Captain Chen announced as he approached them. The first terraforming operation will begin next week in the Kepler 442 system. Terraforming instead of warfare, Queen Valdris mused. It's still difficult to believe how thoroughly our priorities have changed. Not changed, Admiral Reeves corrected gently. Expanded. The consortium always wanted to create new worlds for their species. Now you have the means to do so without taking them from others. The Queen's expression brightened as she remembered the reports from the first reformed member worlds. Species that had been reduced to mining slaves were now partners in massive infrastructure projects. Worlds that had been stripped of resources were being restored using advanced human environmental technology. The transformation had been so rapid and comprehensive that some consortium leaders still struggled to believe it was real. The Keltorian delegation was particularly enthusiastic about the restoration project, she noted. They're contributing mineral extraction expertise to help repair the damage done to their homeworld's ecosystem. Guilt can be a powerful motivator for positive change, Captain Chen observed. But so can hope. As if summoned by their conversation, Dr. Jennifer Walsh approached from the station's central corridor. The woman who had spent 6 years infiltrating consortium military research now served as the Chief Technology Integration Officer for their joint projects. The quantum communication array is online, she reported. We now have instantaneous contact with every member world in the Alliance. Including the newest members? Queen Valdris asked. The Vaxian Council voted unanimously to join yesterday, Dr. Walsh confirmed. They're particularly excited about the agricultural enhancement projects. Apparently, combining human hydroponic systems with consortium biological enhancement produces crop yields that exceed anything they've previously achieved. Queen Valdris nodded approvingly. The Vaxians have been some of the most skeptical about the new alliance, given their history as an agricultural processing world for the consortium. Their enthusiastic participation now served as proof that the reforms were working. What about the Outer Rim surveys? Admiral Reeves asked. Fascinating results, Dr. Walsh replied, activating a holographic display that showed a three-dimensional map of local space. The quantum displacement scouting probes have identified 17 potentially habitable systems within 50 light-years. More importantly, we've detected signs of 3 previously unknown civilizations. Hostile, Captain Chen asked. Unknown. The probes are maintaining safe observation distances while we develop first contact protocols. Dr. Walsh highlighted 3 systems on the star map. These civilizations appear to be at roughly the same technological level as humanity was 30 years ago. Queen Valdris studied the display with interest. First contact situations have always been challenging for the consortium, because your first contact protocols were designed for conquest rather than cooperation, Admiral Reeves pointed out. These civilizations will be approached as potential partners, not potential subjects. The cultural exchange teams are already being assembled, Dr. Walsh added. Linguists, anthropologists, and diplomats from both human and consortium worlds. The goal is to understand these species before attempting any direct contact. How long before we're ready for first contact missions? Queen Valdris asked. Minimum 6 months of observation and analysis, Captain Chen replied. Possibly longer if their societies prove particularly complex. The Queen nodded approvingly. The old consortium would have attempted contact within weeks, backed by overwhelming military force and predetermined demands for submission. The new approach required patience, but it also offered the possibility of genuine friendship rather than fearful compliance. Your Magnificence, a new voice interrupted their conversation. Commander Zix approached from the station's command center, though his bearing had changed significantly since the events 6 months ago. The aggressive military posture had been replaced by something approaching humility. The joint training exercises are complete, he reported. Human tactical flexibility combined with consortium strategic doctrine has produced engagement protocols that are remarkably effective. Effective against what enemies? Queen Valdris asked. Unknown potential threats, Commander Zix replied. The galaxy is vast, and we've only explored a tiny fraction of it. It's inevitable that we'll eventually encounter hostile forces that require military response. But now we'll face those threats as united allies rather than competing civilizations, Admiral Reeves noted. The combined strength of our species gives us capabilities that neither possessed alone. Commander Zix activated his own holographic display, showing detailed analysis of their joint military exercises. Human innovations in shield technology, combined with consortium weapon systems, have produced defensive capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections. And the Psychological Warfare Division? Queen Valdris asked with a slight smile. Dr. Park has been invaluable in developing strategies for defeating enemies without engaging in direct combat, Commander Zix admitted. His understanding of both human and consortium psychology has helped us design tactics that encourage surrender rather than destruction. Queen Valdris reflected on the irony of that statement. The human who had infiltrated their most sensitive military operations was now helping them become more effective at achieving victory without violence. The galaxy is changing, she observed. Species that once feared the consortium are now requesting membership applications. Because membership now means partnership and protection rather than exploitation and submission, Captain Shin replied. Word spreads quickly when you offer genuine benefits instead of threats. The Andromedans have requested preliminary negotiations, Dr. Walsh added. They're particularly interested in our terraforming capabilities. Andromedans? Admiral Reeves asked with surprise. They've been isolationists for over a century. Apparently, they've been monitoring consortium activities from a distance, Queen Valdris explained. The transformation of our alliance structure has convinced them that we might actually be worthy partners rather than potential conquerors. The implications were staggering. If the Andromedans joined their alliance, it would bring 3 additional star systems and some of the most advanced energy manipulation technologies in known space. How many species are we now? Captain Shin asked. 53 as of this morning, Dr. Walsh replied, with 7 more in various stages of application review, including species that were never part of the original consortium. Queen Valdris asked. 12 independent civilizations have requested membership in the past 4 months, Dr. Walsh confirmed. The Tausetians just submitted their application yesterday. Admiral Reeves shook her head in amazement. A year ago, humanity was a single species facing potential extinction. Now we're part of an alliance that spans 70 star systems and continues growing. The power of cooperation over competition, Queen Valdris agreed. Though I must admit, it's still strange to see former enemies working together so effectively. Former enemies can become the strongest allies, Captain Shin observed. They understand each other's capabilities and limitations in ways that natural allies often don't. Through the observation port, they watched as a mixed crew of humans and Zephyrians completed final system checks on one of their new exploration vessels. The easy cooperation between species that had been preparing for war just months ago demonstrated how quickly circumstances could change when both sides chose trust over suspicion. Your Magnificence, a consortium communications officer approached with obvious excitement. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Perimeter Station. Priority transmission? Queen Valdris asked. They've detected an incoming fleet of unknown configuration approaching from outside our galaxy, the officer reported. Estimated arrival in local space within 6 months. The group exchanged glances that mixed concern with anticipation. How large is this fleet? Admiral Reeves asked. Preliminary scans indicate over 200 vessels of unknown design, the communications officer replied. Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Extragalactic visitors, Dr. Walsh mused. We always knew this possibility existed. Are they following established approach vectors for peaceful contact? Captain Shin asked. Unknown. They're not responding to standard hailing frequencies, but they also haven't demonstrated any obviously hostile actions. Queen Valdris straightened, feeling the familiar weight of leadership responsibility settling on her shoulders. But this time, the burden felt different. Instead of facing potential threats alone, she had genuine partners who shared both the risks and the decision-making process. Recommendations? She asked the assembled group. Joint Task Force for initial contact, Admiral Reeves suggested. Mix crews from all member species to demonstrate the inclusive nature of our alliance. Agreed, Captain Shin added. We should also prepare defensive positions, but avoid any actions that could be interpreted as aggressive. Dr. Park's expertise in first contact psychology will be invaluable, Commander Zix noted. He's developed protocols that have been successful with every species we've encountered. And if they prove hostile? Queen Valdris asked. Then they'll discover that our alliance is capable of defending itself, Admiral Reeves replied simply. But they'll also be offered every opportunity to choose cooperation over conflict. Queen Valdris looked out at the joint fleet taking shape beyond the station and felt a sense of confidence she had never experienced during the old consortium's reign of fear and domination. Whatever challenges these extragalactic visitors might present, they would face a united galaxy prepared for both peace and war. Begin preparations for first contact protocols, she ordered, and send word to all member worlds. We may be about to make history. As the group dispersed to implement their preparations, Queen Valdris remained at the observation port, reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, she had been the arrogant ruler of a civilization built on exploitation and fear. Today, she was a partner in an alliance that represented the best hopes of dozens of species working toward common goals. The human Captain Shun had been right about one thing. The galaxy was indeed vast enough for everyone. It had simply taken the wisdom to stop fighting over scarce resources and start working together to make them abundant. Soon, they would discover whether that wisdom could extend beyond their own galaxy to encompass visitors from the vast, unknown spaces between stars. But whatever the outcome, they would face it together as equals, partners, and friends. The age of the predatory consortium was over. The era of the Galactic Alliance had begun.